They lived in palaces stolen from the people they helped destroy. They wore furs, sipped champagne, and smiled for propaganda posters as their husbands planned genocide. But when the Third Reich collapsed, their status couldn't save them. These weren't just wives of Nazi leaders, they were part of the inner circle. And when it all came crashing down in 1945, so did they. Some took cyanide. Some were arrested, humiliated, or hunted. Others chose death over disgrace and dragged their own children down with them. This isn't a war story. It's what happens after the war ends, when the uniforms are gone and there's no one left to lie to. This is the brutal, hard-to-stomach downfall of Nazi Germany's elite women. Magda Goebbels was more than just the wife of Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda chief. She was considered the unofficial First Lady of the Reich. Stylish, composed, obsessively loyal, but under the surface was a devotion that turned into something horrifying. In April 1945, as Berlin collapsed and Soviet forces closed in, Magda and her husband brought their 6 children into the Führerbunker, Hitler's underground hideout. While their walls shook with artillery and Nazi officers whispered about surrender, Magda was preparing for something unthinkable. She believed life without Hitler and without Nazism wasn't life at all. She told others she couldn't imagine her children growing up in a world without the Reich. So, on May 1st, with the war all but over, she and an SS doctor gave the children morphine. Once they were unconscious, she crushed cyanide capsules in their mouths, one by one. Their bodies were found lying side by side in the bunker, dressed in white nightgowns. Hours later, Magda and Joseph walked up to the garden, where Joseph shot her in the head before killing himself. Their bodies were burnt in the same spot where Hitler had been the day before. If Magda was the First Lady in spirit, Emmy Göring was the First Lady on paper. As the wife of Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe and one of Hitler's top men, Emmy lived a life of obscene luxury. She hosted state dinners, collected stolen art, and raised her daughter in a mansion looted from a Jewish family. But after the Reich fell, the cameras disappeared. Emmy was arrested and tried as a Nazi collaborator. She served a year in prison, lost most of her fortune, and was banned from performing or speaking publicly. She spent the rest of her life in a tiny Munich apartment, living off state assistance, avoided by neighbors, and mocked in the press. Her husband took cyanide the night before his execution. Emmy died decades later in near obscurity. Ilse Hess never stopped believing. Even after her husband, Rudolf Hess, flew to Scotland in a bizarre solo mission to make peace with Britain and was imprisoned for life, Ilse stayed true to Nazi ideals. She was arrested by Allied forces in 1945, released after a short internment, and quietly moved to a small town in Bavaria. But unlike others who disappeared in shame, Ilse doubled down. She wrote books defending Hitler, supported Nazi war criminals through underground networks, and stayed active in far-right circles until her death in 1995. She didn't die in disgrace, she died unrepentant. Lina Heydrich married Reinhard Heydrich, the Butcher of Prague. After his assassination in 1942, she inherited his house, money, and a twisted prestige. But when the Reich collapsed, so did her empire, partially by her own hand. In 1945, fearing Allied retribution, Lina fled to Fehmarn Island. She tried to hide, destroy incriminating letters, and rebuild her life. She later married a Finnish theater director and attempted to turn her late husband's summer home into a restaurant, but the property burned in 1969. Despite repeated interviews defending Heydrich's actions and denials that the Holocaust even happened, she lived under a cloud of suspicion. Lina secured a pension after legal battles in the 1950s. But her reputation never recovered. She died in 1985, unrepentant and unforgotten, as chilling as the man she claimed to love. Margarete Himmler was a trained nurse and the SS leader Heinrich Himmler's wife. She rarely wielded public power, but shared his ideology, even serving in Red Cross hospitals in occupied Poland. After the war, she fled with her daughter Gudrun before being arrested in Italy in May 1945. Though interrogated during the Nuremberg trials, Margarete maintained ignorance of her husband's crimes. In November 1946, she was released into a Protestant care home in Bielefeld and formally classified as a Nazi follower or Mitläuferin in 1948. She returned to Munich in 1955, living quietly with her daughter and sister. By 1953, she had lost pension rights and the right to vote. She died in 1967, her budget and social standing reduced to little more than a memory. Her daughter Gudrun continued to exalt her father's legacy. By the late 1960s, the faces of Nazi elite wives faded from public life. Many died of illness, others in obscurity. Emmy's memoir failed to stir sympathy. Ilse's defiance earned her only derision. Margarete Himmler vanished behind care home walls. Their names became footnotes, their stories buried under post-war reconstruction and willful amnesia. Yet their narratives surfaced again in academic studies. The Nazi wives are now seen not as passive victims, but as active enablers whose personal choices helped steer history into darkness. These women weren't collateral damage. They were conscientious enforcers of a murderous regime. Their brutal downfalls, murders, prison, public shame, ideological persistence force us to confront a chilling question. What part did they play in the machinery that led to unimaginable crimes? And how much further did their positions spread through denial, memoirs, and loyalty well after the guns fell silent? They've all gone now. No monuments, no forgiveness. What remains is a vacuum of memory filled with questions. And perhaps that's the harshest punishment. Not death, but the erasure of legitimacy. Their story warns us. History remembers complicity. And even if you escape trial, you never escape truth. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.